It is absolutely useless to talk about theism versus atheism from the Christian point of view.
Doc, it doesn't make sense to talk to someone about Christianity if that person doesn't believe that there is a creator.
I disagree.
That's why I start with the first question, and I say creator in a very broad, general sense without defining.
No, I disagree. I think you're going about it the wrong way. I think you should start with Jesus. And here's why: because Jesus, you believe, is God. Yes. So yes. you get a 2-for-1 deal. It's like 50% off. It's because if you can convince someone that a man rose from the dead 2,000 years ago and made the claim that he is God and predicted that he would die and rise from again, you can get an atheist like me to believe two things at one time. You get theism for free, and then you get Jesus Christ is the specific theism that's true.
But Pine Creek is fundamentally, if I may attack
I am more than happy. Sorry, I am more than happy to talk with you about Jesus, in contrary to Darth Dawkins. Okay.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah, I saw that. So I have no problem to do that. We can have you actually even a stream at your channel and just talk about Jesus and if there is evidence of Christ and his resurrection and so forth. I am more than happy.
Why I said what I said.
Otangelo, I want to here for a second. Just give me a moment.
Let me just answer to Doc here. The thing is, Doc, that most interlocutors of mine, they come like Nathan from a Christian background. And it doesn't make sense that I tell them John 3:16 because they know that already. And many do know the Bible even better than I do. So why should I start with that? But I mean, if someone wants to start with Christ, I mean, I'm fine with that. I have no problem.
But Otangelo, you can't start from that way. And Pine Creek should know this because obviously you justify the divinity of Christ, supposedly, by a reference to God's character, and you establish that by reference to the kinds of cosmological arguments we were talking about earlier. It's a preposterous way to proceed.
No,
like you defend the character of Christ in terms of his existence historically by an entirely different kind of evidence. And then you defend his divinity by reference to these other philosophical arguments that are extremely difficult to connect with each other, but which make no reference to human history whatsoever. It's just you end up with a preposterously grounded understand or belief if you run in that direction.
Here's my theory of why some Christians do what they do is because they find it easier to defend theism, general theism, than specific Christianity.
Sure,
because
but I mean, in the face
exactly what I'm.
But in the face of
it is not my case. But what I very often see is that the conversation switches very fast to accusations that God condones slavery, that he's a monster, that Noah's flood, he drowned babies, all that kind of topics.
Exactly.
I am also happy to defend all these things, but yeah.
But if Jesus Christ is God incarnate and did the things that the New Testament reports him to say, you get theism for free. You don't need to start with cosmological arguments.
But I mean, Pine Creek, like you agree that this is historically inscrutable. I don't know why we're asking him to defend an absurdity. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So here's one way you could defend, or you could talk about showing, demonstrating that specific theism is true first, and then just leaving the philosophical type gods out of the picture. And that is, you do a miracle. You get an amputee in here, and you pray in the name of Jesus, and you heal him. I guarantee you, Otangelo, atheists watching this, if they see an amputee come in here, and you pray in the name of Jesus that their limb will instantly grow back, I tell you, now, we're not trying to trick each other here. That will have a double take. People will just be like, "Whoa, what just happened here?"
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like we have literally movies about that sort of thing being hoaxed. Nobody would believe that sort of evidence.
Doc, let me answer to this. Right? The first stream that I saw at your channel, you were portraying the miracle of the prophet
Elijah.
Isaiah, I think we say in English, which called the prophets, and then fire came. And
Yeah, Elijah, 1 Kings 18.
Yes. And you said, well, if that would happen today, then all atheists, they would become theists.
I did not say that.
Yeah, it was something like that. Maybe not word by word, but you said, why doesn't God perform miracles in a sense that everyone can see that God exists? And my answer to that is, first of all, that there are three epochs in the Bible where God performed big miracles. One was by the Exodus, the second was precisely these events, and the third was Jesus. We don't see that after this, big miracles happened again. So I believe that God has purposes to do in certain periods of time these big miracles.
You don't think God does miracles today?
Yes, I think He does. And if you look on YouTube,
like
you will see
big
many
miracles.
people,
Oh my God!
you will see many people which will say, I experienced the miracle. I experienced the healing of cancer.
I mean, do you believe God does miracles like give an amputee his limb back?
I believe that God still performs
just for a sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just for a sec. You don't need to have an answer to this. You can say you don't know.
Well, I don't say I don't know because I believe by people which I have heard.
Okay, but knowing doesn't mean believing. Knowing means a belief with certain other qualities.
President Sunday, I didn't ask a knowledge question. I asked Otangelo, do you believe that miracles like an amputee?
The question's silly and it leads to a philosophically meaningless answer, regardless of what he gives.
It's silly, but I'm asking Otangelo a silly question now. Is that all right?
Well, my honest question is, I have seen demons leaving someone when I presence that person was possessed by a demon, and in the name of Jesus Christ, that demon left. So if you consider that a miracle, I've presenced it.
Yeah, to me, that's a bad miracle. I mean, it's so easy to fake something like that. But if we were all to get together in a room in real life, and I'm not trying to trick anyone, you're not trying to trick anyone, we get like 10 random amputees to come who fought in the Iraq war, their limbs are gone. And you pray in the name of Jesus that the limbs will immediately come back. And it happens. I tell you, my confidence in your God would go sky high to the point where I would believe.
I believe that not only yours, but all atheists. But the thing is God's purpose to perform such kind of miracles? I mean, after he resurrected, he could have gone and showed himself to the Pharisees, and he didn't do it. So he just showed himself to his disciples. So my answer to that is, God gives enough light to those that want to believe and seek him, and he gives enough darkness to those which want to exist and live independently and autonomously to him, and he respects that. But if you really seek him and want to find him, then you will find him.
Okay, yeah, then that works also for Islam and Mormonism. Seek and you shall find. That's one of the best verses in the Bible, in my opinion, because it works every time it's tried. If you seek hard enough, you will find what you're looking for.
Well, I mean, I've made comparative studies in regards of Islam. Go ahead and make your study, and you will see what is more convincing to you. I mean, it's
all I'm saying is for a guy like me, and for I think a lot of atheists or naturalists, they would say they would need some demonstrable evidence to believe.
And I think this is a very bad epistemological framework. I would say if you want to warrant that the natural world is all there is, bring up good reasons how natural, unguided, non-intelligent mechanisms can instantiate the physical world.
Yeah.
And if that kind of massive mechanism which you propose is superior,
but we both agreed, Otangelo, we went over this.
Then fine.
We already went over this, and I would love for you to say, just loud and clear for the world to hear, do you believe, do you know the mechanism of how God created the universe and life? The exact mechanism.
Does that refute that God is the best explanation of our existence? Just because I don't know how exactly he does it?
But do you know the mechanism?
I said no, I don't.
Right.
I don't know.
So we're not talking about mechanisms and having a naturalist explain how life came from non-life. That's off the table now because we're
No,
on
it is
equal
not.
foot. We're on
No.
equal footing. You can't
We are
explain
not.
it. You
No.
can't explain the mechanism,
No. I cannot explain the mechanism, but by
and
experience.
I can't either.
No, let me finish. But I can say by experience, I know that the interface mind, physical world
Yeah,
works.
we've heard this already. Yeah,
Okay,
we're repeating ourselves.
So you have no case because you need to work with whatever alternative mechanism to intelligence you have at hand. And what is it and how
Can I ask you questions on what you exactly believe? Just yes or no, lean yes, lean no.
Yeah.
Or just like short one-word answers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the Earth thousands of years old, millions of years old, or billions of years old? Which A, B, or C?
I believe thousands of years old.
Oh, for God's sake.
Thousands. Do you believe Adam and Eve literally existed and that Eve was created from the rib of Adam?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that the Earth was flooded globally, locally, or none? Neither.
Globally.
Globally. Okay.
Why?
Do you believe that Satan is a real entity that exists and causes people to do bad things?
Yes.
Do you believe in demons?
Yes.
Do you believe in angels?
Yes.
Do you believe in both heaven as a place and hell as a place?
Yes.
Do you believe that as soon as you die, you go to one of those places for eternity?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think I know where you're coming from now. Do you believe Jesus actually walked on water?
Yes.
Cast demons out of pigs or into pigs?
Yeah.
Okay. Walk through walls, as it says in the Gospel of John?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Hold on, can I ask something? So earlier you were saying that everyone who seeks like properly will be able to find, right? Otangelo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that implies that like every non-Christian hasn't looked hard enough. Is that? Are you really gonna?
I believe that unbelief is unwarranted because we have the revelation through the natural world and we have direct revelation through the Bible. So I don't think that any atheist has a justified disbelief and warranted belief in naturalism.
But Otangelo, you don't spin an explanation of a thing's existence only by reference to the thing's existence. That's not an explanation, that's a description.
Well, the natural world is the evidence, and the simple fact that we exist demonstrates that God exists.
Well, how about this might help? Maybe this will help, right? So here's what's happened, right? You're saying that the natural world exists and there's like complexity and stuff in it. So Doug's explanation, right, is that's all just natural causal reality, but the actual mechanism he doesn't know, right? So here's what Doug's put on the table: natural causal reality.
No. I said that listen, you're misrepresenting me, Nathan. I said
no. I'm talking about Doug. That's Doug's theory. Sorry.
Oh,
Doug's theory is natural causal reality, and we don't know.
Oh,
but then I'm saying what I think I'm hearing from you about your theory is natural causal reality. God does it as well here, but there's a big layer of we don't know. So it's the same thing. You've both got the same, but yours actually has more stuff in it.
What I am saying is that I believe that there must be an eternal, powerful, intelligent creator which instantiated the physical universe through his intelligence and his power.
Okay,
how exactly he did it, and that interface mind, physical, how that works, I don't know. But the problem goes both ways. If you claim that the physical world was first and then the mental came afterwards, then you have also to explain how the brain produces the mind, because we are talking here about two separate realities and substances.
But listen, Otangelo, if you don't understand how the mechanism works, then why would you think that in the absence of a mechanism, the universe would select for simplicity or something, or we simply wouldn't see complexity. This doesn't make sense.
No, I would say if you remove God, you have no mechanism whatsoever, and any explanation
How do you
becomes
know
absurd.
that? How
Well,
do you
I think
determine
maybe
that?
it might be better to take little baby steps here, because I think Otangelo, I heard him say that he was making a probabilistic argument, right?
No,
He's
he
making
presupposes-
Well, that was
cumulative case.
the fine-tuning one was a little different. Yeah, this one is like, well, I guess if I said pixies did it right, I don't know the exact mechanism, but pixies did it, and then we have natural causal reality. How would you argue against that? Like, why couldn't that be right?
Well, okay, if I can, I actually want to ask Otangelo, and this pertains to what y'all were talking about. Otangelo, you're saying that if anything physical exists, do you think it's necessary that's ultimately explained by God? Is that your view?
Yes.
Okay, so if I take a world in which there's a single electron, you're saying that in virtue of a single electron existing, God necessarily exists.
Yes.
Okay, so what about an electron generates the prediction that God created it?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
The point is that you're making the claim that if anything physically exists, necessarily God intended it for it to exist. So if I just take a world in which there's a single lepton, electron, take a fundamental particle, I'm just using an electron for simplicity's sake, that somehow entails the necessity of God's existence. And that means there's something about the electron that I'm not aware of that says that entails God's existence. And I want to know that property of the electron.
Well, the thing is that as soon as you state physical entity, that physical entity exists in space, time, and okay, an electron doesn't have matter, but it is a physical entity, and as soon as it exists in time, and when you have sequential events, then you need to have a beginning, and if you have a beginning, you need a cause.
Wait, why is that necessitated? It could have been an electron that's always existed.
It cannot.
What's the contradiction?
Okay, I can explain that to you. Give me just a minute, okay?
No,
Well,
the pain. The pain.
How about like, how like if the physicalist is just going to say, well, it just exists necessarily, right? Like, what are you going to say to that? Why?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yeah, that's what I was asking. There's a contradiction in that.
Yeah.
Okay, what I am saying is that an eternal regress is not possible, and I will explain you why.
Hang on. Before you tell us the Grim Reaper paradox or whatever, right? Or Hilbert's Hotel or something like.
No. That's not what I am saying. That's not what I was saying.
The reason why we can't have an infinity, right? But before we do that, can we talk about like, so what is your understanding of like physics? Like how are physicalists like laying out things that exist? So you've got like, do you understand like a 4-dimensional vector space, like what that is?
No.
So if you think of like, like a 3-dimensional, a Cartesian graph, it's pretty much the same sort of thing. And then a 4th dimension is kind of like just going to be time on there. This is how physicists think of like, space time basically. And so if we go back to the very first point, it doesn't make sense to say what's before that. That just is the first point in the earlier than direction. So to say like,
the thing is, in order for you to have a first point, you need a cause.
Why?
Except for God.
Yes, because God is eternal and he doesn't exist in the physical realm.
Well, that's not eternal because that's just necessary existence, right? You're saying it doesn't need an explanation, but to say cause, like it just doesn't make sense to say, well, what causes, unless you're talking about a cause in the sense of explanation, right? Because that first point, there isn't a thing earlier than that first point to cause it. You're saying what explains it existing at all.
Yes, but why is there that first point rather than not?
Right, okay, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Why is it necessary?
Well, that doesn't make sense because necessary just means couldn't have been otherwise, right? It's like, why is God necessary?
Why couldn't it be otherwise and simply not exist?
Yeah,
because it's necessary.
Look, basically, Otangelo, you have to point out a contradiction in the phrase "necessary electron." I don't see a contradiction.
I just tried, and if you permit me, I will explain you why the electron.
What are the two propositions that contradict each other then?
the electron exists in a physical realm, and as soon as it exists in a physical realm, it exists in time, because change implies time. And as soon as you have time,
There may not have been any change.
You need a starting point.
He's basically presupposing that you can't have eternal physicalness, right?
Right, but I don't see a contradiction. He didn't say a contradiction. I didn't utter any contradictoriness.
No, he's
in
just
what
saying
he just said.
he's just claiming it. He's just it's by
But
royal
again-
default fiat.
Well, of course,
The
if you
physicalist-
want to propose that your atom is eternal, and I gave you 3 possible propositions in regards of the origin of the universe, I can repeat it, but I think it's not necessary. I gave.
I'm just looking for the two propositions that contradict each other.
Okay. Listen, I gave the event causation. You probably were not here yet. I gave the state causation, and I gave the state event causation. What you are proposing is the state causation. So I can quote it again if everyone wants, or we.
I
can
just
move
want the 2
forward.
propositions that contradict each other when I say necessary.
He can't give you
Article.
one, Danny.
If
It's just
you
by,
repeat those arguments
I-
again, I
okay,
swear to
so,
God, I'm gonna
okay,
be
so
an
let me quote you here and give you the answer. In a state causation, one state of affairs causes another state of affairs to exist. It faces the same problem as the event causation. This causation is like a frozen pond. where
Otangelo,
there
this
would
is a
be-
waste of time. You're wasting everybody's time here because this is not the issue. The issue is about something just being necessary and always existing. And your
Okay,
position
so-
is
Okay,
something
so my
physical
simple
can't do that,
answer-
right?
Okay, so my simple answer is, if there would be just that single electron, then that would be it and finish. It wouldn't make anything else.
That's right.
Say that again. What did you say?
If you propose that there would be an eternal single electron, then that electron would simply be there for eternity, and that's it. It wouldn't create a universe.
Yeah. So it's coherent then. It's coherent
It
to
is a
have a
po-
concrete,
it is-
a physical
it is a
concrete object without
possibility.
God. Do you agree
is-
with me then?
It is a possibility, but the thing is that we have an entire universe to
And God's
explain
not
it.
necessary. If
Yes.
it's a possibility, then that means that the existence of a physical thing doesn't entail God's existence. So you agree with me?
So can an electron cause our universe with all its?
Do you agree or
complexity?
disagree with me? Do you
On
agree
what?
or disagree with me?
On what?
You just said, from what I just heard, you said it's possible that you could have such a state in which you have an electron that doesn't engage in causal relations because you gave your reasons. That's just to say that it's possible that you can have a physical concrete thing without God.
Maybe I've never thought about that, but let's
There you go.
entertain that possibility.
Progress,
This
because
is where I was trying to start.
15 minutes ago or so, Otangelo, I asked you to imagine a world where there's no God, write a screenplay, and you said that's impossible. And now you're saying it is possible to have at least an electron, something physical, always existing.
Well, if we are saying that it simply exists and that it doesn't, it is not submitted to the laws of physics, like the second law of thermodynamics and so forth, then be my guest and entertain the idea.
Attention.
Well,
That's to
can
say
I
God
just-
is not
can I ask a
entailed
question?
by these states. That's the
Right,
point.
you're already
Okay.
already entertaining it, right? Because you were making a probabilistic cumulative case for God being necessary for God, excuse me, right? But a probabilistic case is not a necessary case, right? So you're already basically saying that not God is possible.
Okay, no, let's make a thought experiment here and state that one single eternal.
Can you please answer, and then you can qualify as long as you want. Do you agree with that or not?
No.
Can you ask again, please?
Yes. So when you're making a cumulative case and you're saying a probabilistic case, when you're saying that the Christian God is the best explanation, when you're using all that, none of that is necessarily true. But when you go on to say not God is impossible, it couldn't be the case with not God. The atheist view is impossible. How do you get from probabilistic to necessary? I don't understand. So the question is, do you think that God is necessary or not necessary?
Well, first of all, I think that something must have always existed because something cannot come from absolutely nothing. And by nothing, I mean the philosophical nothing, the contrary of something. So that state of affairs has never been, because otherwise it still would be the same state of affairs, and absolutely nothing would still be that ontological state of
Everything
affairs.
that you're saying is
So
compatible with saying that God is not necessary.
I don't, with all due respect, Otangelo, I repeated the question. I requested that you answer the question. I qualified by saying
I
that
can
you
answer
may
him. His
qualify.
answer is necessary. God has to be necessary in his worldview.
Is that correct, Otangelo?
Well, if you permit that I end my answer and then you can criticize it, is that okay?
Go ahead. I would prefer at the end to hear necessary or not necessary. Go ahead.
Can I just quickly ask a clarifying question on the electron thing?
No, since I'm not being able to answer.
Well,
then
Otangelo,
let's
you
go
keep
on.
engaging in meta commentary about your question. Like, just get to the
Well,
point.
I cannot answer
Can I-
4 things. I cannot
I be
remember.
heard?
I mean, either I address Tom Rabbit's question or we move on, whatever.
Hello?
So
I
shall
can hear you,
finish?
Rob.
All right.
So
Can you
shall I
guys just let him
finish, or-
answer, please? This is my
Okay.
third attempt.
So something must have always existed. So since there is a physical universe, then that demands an explanation, and it isn't explained by an electron. So I still think that an intelligent, eternal creator must exist because the physical universe exists.
Okay. So what's the answer?
His answer is it's necessary. God's necessary, but the universe isn't.
Right, Otangelo, is that your answer?
I don't think he understands what that means, but you do, Otangelo?
Okay, I'm not.
Well, I
I'm not
think we
particularly.
can listen. We can posit, as Danny said, an eternal electron. But if that would be the ontological
I'm not talking
situation,
about electrons.
then he was, and that's what I am addressing. So that could theoretically, in a thought experiment, simply be a timeless electron, and that would be the eternal state of affairs. And then you can posit that a necessary God is not necessary.
No answer. Okay, I'm gonna drop it. I mean, it's not gonna be.
Otangelo,
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
not-
Maybe I misunderstood your question. Maybe it was a bit too loaded. Sorry for that.
Otangelo, I'm
Look,
not-
I
don't
was
get
just
any-
saying, is the Christian God necessary or not necessary? And when you answer, you're supposed to say either necessary or not necessary.
You need to tell him what that means, necessary, what it means.
God is impossible. Means that God is
How
necessary.
about could not have been otherwise? Would that be?
Either one.
There's a chance, or it could have been.
If you are talking about the specificity of the Christian God, then I would say no, it's not necessary, because maybe God's nature would be different somehow. But if you are talking about a creator, then yes, I think
We're not talking about the character of God. We're talking about God. Like you're saying God could have a different nature, but in that world where he has a different nature, there's still God.
Can I just ask a question about the electron? So, nuclear synthesis with respect to the electron, like Big Bang theory.
This is the wrong way to go. I can already tell. Nuclear synthesis. Come on, guy.
No. I think I said nucleosynthesis.
No, what Tom's saying, Rob? I think you missed it. He's saying that this is going to take us down like a bit of a rabbit hole, if you pardon the pun, Tom. Which isn't going to be like, which isn't going to help Otangelo out. I think that's what he means.
I'm having a problem getting an answer to necessary or not necessary. And you think that going down the route of nucleosynthesis is going to somehow elucidate the conversation?
Because when you mention electron, the electron
what is
is a
your
late
problem?
object in our universal history, is what I'm saying, relatively speaking, from Big Bang cosmology. So,
I mean, but why would you go down this route, right? I mean, like,
because when you say, is there such a thing as an eternal electron, I can't conceive of an eternal electron. An electron doesn't exist, say, in the first 15 seconds of the Big Bang. It annihilates a positron electron pair. They annihilate to make photons.
Well, what about just like a lepton or something? I don't know, like.
Well, then you have,
And it's not infinite either. It's just.
But
It's
I
just
mean,
a
the
matter of-
question.
well,
The
lepton,
question
for
is,
example,
Yeah, once we get
Are
to
you
top quarks, we're really going to start making progress with Otangelo, right, guys?
Tom, the question is: are you trying to make a thought experiment which is not related to reality, or are you asking a question which is related to reality?
yeah, but again, the question, both the question and on Tangelo's perspective, it's like a brick wall on both sides, because Otangelo is a young Earth creationist. He doesn't believe in the Big Bang.
Well, the problem is that Otangelo is defensive. He's not stupid. I think we need to stop treating him like a child.
Sure, and I agree with you on that. So but this is what is confusing me on Tangelo, is you are quite articulate in the way you articulate your case, but you then say that the Earth is, or the universe is 6,000 years old, and I'm just like, well, if your Christian model is young Earth creationism, you've literally then falsified it, because there is no evidence for young Earth creationism. There's zero evidence.
There's the Bible, Rob.
No, the Bible's not evidence for young creationism.
I'm on your side, Otangelo. I'll back you up. The Bible says the Earth is young.
It doesn't.
I can give you several reasons. I mean, I started 15 years ago when I married. My wife's father was a geologist, a Christian, and he was an old Earth creationist. And I started with that, and I hold the old Earth view for several years. But I had problems with the starlight and the classical geological.
But why would you have problem with the
dating.
starlight and so on prior to being a Christian?
I don't even understand that.
I started.
Like he's meeting an older Christian.
No, he was saying he was an old earther, and then
Yes,
when
I was an
when
old
presented
earther.
with the young Earth thing, he found the starlight problem to be a problem for the young Earth view.
Correct. So for several years, I remained agnostic. I have good friends. They keep being agnostics in regards of the dispute if the Earth is old or young and so forth. But even if today it is not a fully satisfactory explanation that the Earth is young, and I have open questions, I am leaning to the young Earth interpretation of the history of everything. So, and I have, of course, I'm not baseless in regards of that position. I believe that
Hang on. I don't understand.
there are several reasons why I hold to the position that the universe and the Earth are young.
I don't understand the knee-jerk reaction of this room, and I'm asking these questions to Otangelo. Like, do you guys not see the problem?
I think the point, Rob, is
because
that
I understand. One second. I understand most of the non-theists in here are obviously trying to corner Otangelo.
I'm on his side now.
Not entirely, no. You are defending a 200-year-old theory.
I have to run, but
Well,
if
I
I can just
disagree with you.
Otangelo really quickly.
I think
hang on a tangent, because President Sundays wants to go. Do you want to just let him?
I haven't
yeah,
really
I'm
spoken
gonna
at
run,
all.
so I
I've just
gotta
been here.
really-
I know. No, I
listening for like the last 2 hours.
I know.
I
But
will-
he's going to go, and then yeah.
You will have more space, I promise. Otangelo, like I think bluntly, with all due respect, we've established that you basically played your hand. And at this point, our comrades here are comfortable to just continue tightening the screws indefinitely, and clearly you're comfortable having your thumbs cut off to the point where they fall off. But in all honesty, like I get the attitude that you're approaching this with, where you have to have an answer to everything, because the stakes are very high from your perspective. I'm saying this as a theist myself. Like you don't need to engage in this, and I'm not imputing this to your personality, but in these pretentious assertions that you have some kind of necessary knowledge of the extrinsic workings of ultimate reality.
I don't. I've been very fine by admitting when I don't know some things, and I'm just admitting that I don't have all the answers in regards of a young creationist model. I don't have all the answers, and I am fine with that, and I am fine admitting it. I feel no shame by admitting when I don't understand something.
But you use what you don't understand as a black box. But what you don't understand is still functioning as a black box. God has a mechanism that you cannot describe and you cannot encompass, and yet it does exactly what you need it to affirm your view of the world. It doesn't work.
No, I don't. I disagree with you.
All right. Well, anyways, thank you, Nathan, for having me on. You guys have a good night.
Look, my problem is that I've heard Otangelo go to other streams and make claims that God is necessary, God is necessary, God is necessary. And then when we ask him, do you think God is necessary? Then we don't get that whole God is necessary spiel again. You know, suddenly it's a convoluted answer. And so it's frustrating, right? Now, Otangelo, I'll ask what Tom asked you. Is God necessary or not? Yes or no?
If you are making okay, yes, he is. Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
there we go.
Okay.
necessary.
So earlier you said that there was this, I gave a weird hypothetical with electron, all that stuff. You said that given certain conditions, that state of affairs, that thought experiment went through, logically speaking, without God's existence. So how do you, I think that that's contradictory with the claim that God is necessary. So I don't see how you can get out of that.
It's easy, Danny. If you are talking about the real world, then your thought experiment is irrelevant and it is completely off the real world.
Pine Creek is right. You don't know what necessary means.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then-
Well, how about this?
Go ahead, Tom.
How does it follow? And I'm sure you know what that means. How does it follow that if something is probabilistically true or probable or the best explanation, how does it follow from that that it is the case? Period.
Well, if we are talking about ultimate reality, then the answer will be that God is necessary. If we are talking about probabilistic arguments, then I will say it is more likely that life came by an intelligent source rather than not. So it depends on what topic that we
Right. Here's
what we're
the
talking
problem.
about.
You just said that it's more likely, right, that life came from an intelligent source. That implies that it's possible that life came from a non-intelligent source, right?
Okay.
But my question is, you're presenting what you describe as a cumulative case, which is the best explanation, but a lot of times the best explanation isn't the actual explanation, correct? Correct?
Yes, it not all
Right.
this could
And a
be-
lot
I
of
disagree
times
with
what's
you.
probable is not what is actual, correct, Otangelo?
Well, if you use
That's an easy one. Come on. It's probable you're not going to be dealt a pair,
This is-
but
Tom,
it's, sometimes you get a
this is-
pair.
Tom, this is the second time that we have an interaction. You ask loaded questions, and when I answer, then you disagree because you think I am inaccurate in my reply to you, and this leads nowhere.
Otangelo, I can answer on your behalf, and you just let me know if I'm right or wrong. So Tom
Okay.
Rabbit will ask me, and then I'll answer the way he wants it to be answered, and then you just nod your head or shake your head. Okay, go
Okay.
ahead, Tom
All right.
Rabbit.
How
Ask
does it
Otangelo
follow?
anything?
How does it follow from something being probable that it is the case 100%?
No, I just misspoke. When I said likely, I mean that basically God has to exist. He's necessary, and he has to be the cause of everything that is physical in existence.
Well,
So
I
when I said the word likely, I kind of misspoke. God is the only explanation for existence. Am I right,
So
Otangelo?
Yes.
Okay, God is the only explanation for existence. Got you. I got you. We're all clear. Now the problem is, how do you get to there from God is likely?
No, God isn't like God is one. He's 100%. He's always existed. He's necessary. Case closed.
Okay, but okay, I got that. So when you present a probabilistic argument for anything,
I misspoke. I misspoke, Tom. I apologize.
okay. So it was a necessary argument?
Yes.
Okay, how?
There is. You can't ask a question beyond that. When I say it's necessary, we're done. Danny's agrees with me, right? Philosophically, when you say something's necessary, there's no further explanation.
Well, I would
mean,
answer
he wants to.
differently.
he wants to say
I know
that
that's
it's
a different-
justified, right? Otangelo, you want to say you're justified in thinking that there's a necessary being, right?
Yes, of
Right.
course, I would justify.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
attributes in which it is the case that it could not have been any other way, right? But if that's the case, lay it on me.
Well, it's a properly basic belief, Tom. We start.
Proper-
You
No,
have to
there's a
start.
logical
Well, then I thought you
inference
said it was
based on the
justified,
evidence.
though.
No, it is a
You
logical
don't justify.
inference
You
based
don't
on the
justify
evidence.
your properly. You don't justify your core presuppositions.
Right, that's the problem, because you can't say it's justified, right, and then
Right.
say it's a properly basic belief. So that's not going to work.
Well, it's a way of showing that, like, deep down, Tom, you believe God exists. You just suppress that, and so when we say we justify it to ourselves that God exists because we have these, we look around, we have our senses, we see existence. You share that properly basic belief as I do, but logically, not logically, but there has to be something that has always existed. It's either God or the material. The material can't always exist, so therefore God. How am I doing, Otangelo?
Yes, at the end, I agree with you.
There we go. Can I answer any other of your questions, Tom Rabbit?
Something nucleosynthesis.
The answer is 4.
Well, I'm no further questions.
But what we've learned here, I think, on Tangelo, is that I think I and other people in this live stream have saved you a ton of time, because really you don't need to talk about evolution or chemical evolution or the age of the universe or beginnings and causation. All you have to say is we have existence, therefore God. We're done. Don't have to talk about fine tuning. Don't have to talk about the design argument. I've saved you a ton of time. Whenever you feel tempted to talk to an atheist about fine tuning, stop yourself and say, just say, open your eyes and look around.
Doc, listen, it's easier. Just go to the Discord channel of Darth Dawkins.
Exactly. Pine Creek is right, because why would you ever talk about it probably is when you could say it has to be?
Yeah. There isn't.
Why would you ever talk about it? Why would you ever talk about it?
They're denying that there is a probability space there. Like, there isn't.
You're right. Yeah. I agree with you.
So when you go back and to your friends who share the same worldview as you, I plead with you, take this message with you, that you guys are wasting your time talking to naturalists about things like abiogenesis and the problems with evolution. You're just wasting your time. Just say we have existence,
listen,
therefore God.
My interaction is with all kind of people. It is with you. It is with Tom Rabbit. It is with Nathan. It is with Danny. Danny comes from a philosophical background. Other people come from a scientific background. Others, they think God doesn't exist because there is evolution. And we address these things. So we don't have a drug for all kind of diseases.
Right, but on the topic of atheism versus theism, I think you're wasting your time on a lot of things you talk about. But if you want to talk to a guy like Rob about evolution, yeah, then go ahead. It's because Rob, he's one of those silly Christians who believe the Earth is billions years old and common descent and all these things. He believes
exactly, because it's the ancient idea as well.
Yeah, I lead with a lot of people, and every time I have an interaction with someone, that gives me points to think about and to investigate, to discover, and that leads me to have more knowledge, and it's fun. So,
but as a
the
former
Pine Creek effect, there you go.
As
There's
a
testimony.
As a former Christian, who I was never a young Earth creationist like you, but are now. But I think you're also wasting your time, because what is it if you gain all this theism and you convince someone and they still don't become a Christian? Like, it's the issue here is heaven and hell, is it not? This is like, people need to know the gospel, and if they don't learn the true gospel and accept it, they are doomed. This is the real motivator for you. Am I wrong?
yes, you're wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
So
am often questioned what my motivation is, And most people think that my motivation is to try to convert atheists, and that's not the case.
No. The motivation is to share the gospel, though, is my point.
Okay. Christ said that he gave us the Great Commission to go and to share the gospel with others. Okay, so my motivation is to obey my Lord. It isn't
Right.
to try to convince you, because you convincing yourself, that's your business. If
Well,
after
I
I share
understand.
my belief with you,
I understand. But why do you want to share the gospel and obey God? Why do you want to obey God?
because I want to please him. I love my Lord.
Why do you want to please him?
Because I love him, because he's
Why do
God.
you love him?
Because he demonstrated who he is, his nature, his godliness, his love, his graciousness, his justice.
So what? Why are those things important to you?
Because that's the reason of my existence, to know him, to love him, to be loved by him, and to love others.
It's a family business, Doug. That's why.
That's a
But
good question.
what does that give you? What if that's your purpose?
Well, who gives me purpose is God. So the purpose why he created is because he loves us, and he wants that we love him, and he wants that we love each other. So that's the purpose of our existence.
But isn't this whole idea for purpose and meaning and hope for an afterlife, it makes you feel good, right?
Absolutely. It gives me a peace. It gives me hope. It gives me meaning. It gives me a foundation where I am satisfied intellectually.
Yeah, and I get that. And if you were to leave Christianity, let's say you became deceived 5 years from now, and you left, and you became like a guy like me, what do you think would happen to you? What would change in your life?
What would change in my life? I would become hopeless. I would lose the meaning of not understanding anymore my existence. I wouldn't become an atheist. I would become a nihilist. And
Do you think you would commit suicide?
You can be
Well, I
both, by
think-
the way.
Well, I think if you really rationally think it through, then committing suicide wouldn't be such a wrong answer.
Yeah, especially if you were in pain, right? Like you could, hey, I'll just kill myself.
Well, when I was in depression, actually, I tried suicide. So
You did.
Yeah.
See, in a lot of ways, Christianity saved your life, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, there's going to be zero chance of a guy like me convincing you that Christianity is false if you truly believe that Christianity saved your life, right?
There's much more than just that.
I know, but not only you combine that Jesus actually saved your actual life and it gives you hope, meaning, and purpose. I mean, you have a buffet of reasons to believe, and there's anybody who tries to take any of those things away from you, you're going to push back hard. Yes.
Just to be on
chance.
Doug's side a little bit. So, for example, Doug was talking to some Muslims, and in those discussions that I heard on Otangelo, they told Doug the exact same statements, like hope, meaning, purpose in Islam. So if you were in dialogue with a Muslim, you have two opposing gods, two opposing religions. Now what?
Well, then I would go to demonstrate why I think that the Quran is not trustworthy.
But then he'll do the same with the Bible.
That's why I don't like to have much conversations with.
It's because you lose half of the tools in your bag, right? You can't appeal to some of the things because they're just going to appeal to, oh, guess what? I got a book too, right? Guess what? I got Revelation too. And it's just like, yeah, you know what? I'd rather talk to the atheist.
No. I have good tools to why I don't think that the Islamic religion is false. So I would use these tools.
Right. But here's what I don't ever get about Christians and things like what you just said is that Christians seem to think that they're the only ones with apologetics, right? I mean, they really think that. They really think, if I was going to talk to a Muslim, I would just point to this verse in the Quran.
If you see Justin from EA channel, when I started see him with that dress of a Muslim, I was thinking that he was actually impersonating. And the last few days, I actually discovered that he really converted to Islam, and I was flabbergasted. So, of course, they have powerful arguments, and I give that to them. But I am not convinced that their prophet is trustworthy.
If
But
it
you know-
was such a powerful argument, why wouldn't he share it with us? Because with the stream that I saw, he was repeatedly asked to reveal what the argument was that convinced him, and he declined to say it. Now, if he truly had a knockdown argument,
I actually did have an interaction with him today on private in Messenger, and I did send him a video of Quraysh, and he said that he didn't watch it, and he will watch it and then give me an answer. So I'm curious as well to understand. But he mentioned three things. He questioned me in regards of the Trinity and the incarnation, and I think that's where probably he has problems with the Christian faith. I have no problem with old Earth creationists. I was one, and of course it is a very controversial.
Okay, cut to the chase,
issue.
because Nathan, just what is the evidence for young Earth?
I believe that soft tissue in dinosaurs.
I'm becoming Pine Creek now. Doug, you've taught me well.
I was just about to lean forward and say that. It's like, you make my heart proud.
Soft tissue in dinosaurs. I had recently on MDD.
Okay, that's been debunked. Sorry, Mary Schweitzer has totally refuted that. Next.
Well, that's just her opinion. I mean, I can provide you scientific papers which demonstrate that soft tissue cannot remain soft depending on the temperature between 1 and 2 million
No,
years.
sorry.
So
Okay.
it cannot be
Okay,
500 million years.
Okay,
So-
just quickly. No. Her dissertation in 98, she wrote a dissertation. Her PhD was on exactly that. The young creationists only know about that because of her work in the 90s that then led to about 5 papers. The latest one, I think, was 2019, showing a relationship with ostriches and hence the avian evolution between dinosaurs and birds. And potentially the T-Rex was pregnant because, female. So
she will have to
she's responded to
dispute
that.
So she will have to dispute my sources, which are scientific sources, which say that soft tissue cannot withstand 500 million years. There are science papers which claim that they did find fossils of the Cambrian 500 million years old with non-periminal, with soft tissue in there, and that's simply something which.
I'm sorry. There's absolutely zero evidence with this dinosaur blood stuff, and because there is no blood vessels, there is no dinosaur blood. So Fuzz Rana, for example, at RTB has written a book on this, Dinosaur Blood, Age of the Earth. He shows how it's possible for a certain type of preservation.
Let's get to the next one. Let's put that.
Yeah, so
put a pin.
skip to the next. Yeah, skip to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. I've just recently had a debate on MDD, on Modern Day Debate, with Philip Williams. And I believe that Noah's Ark has been found on Mount Ararat, and Philip Williams has been there. Well, I mean, go and watch the debate, and there is the video of his visit there. He has made 2 videos on YouTube.
Okay, what is Gopherwood?
And what do you mean? What is Gopherwood?
What is Gopherwood in the Bible?
Do you relate that it was used to make Noah's Ark?
Yeah. What is it? Because scholars know you can't translate that word. They don't know what it is.
Well, does that disprove that there is a structure of wood on Mount Ararat?
So then, recent scholarship, and Josh can point this out, with respect to loan words, it actually means reeds.
Don't do it, Josh.
So,
Don't do it.
I don't think Rob needs me for this one.
so you have.
You are not addressing what you are not addressing. What I said. I said there has been found a structure on Mount Ararat.
Yeah,
there
but
are
that's
video footages of that structure. I have made a considerable investigation on that structure. You can look it up. I can give the link.
Are you
What does that have to do with the age of the
structure?
Earth? What does that have
Yeah,
to do with the age of the
how's
Earth?
that to do with the age of the Earth? Yeah, exactly.
If Noah's flood happened, and actually worldwide as described in the Bible, then this is very considerable evidence. that the framework lined up in Genesis is actually true, and we
When would that have happened?
balance.
Because I think that's
About-
just sort of the death knell to it. When would that have happened? Roughly.
Probably about 4,500 years ago, something like that.
Okay, so right
Or
in the middle of the
5,000
third millennium.
Maybe 5,000 years ago. So I mean, there is the Masoretic text on the Old Testament, and they have a discrepancy of 500 years. So I believe that it's 500 years older, and that also matches then with the Egypt timeline.
How much
I would
water?
suggest-
How much water?
Sorry,
would
I
have
would
been
just
needed?
encourage. I would just encourage you to go look at what historical data we have from that period. It's a lot.
Because where I was going, just to quickly
Tiny
say, where I
amount.
was going with the gopher thing is that since it's a coracle reed boat thing that's not even the size of a yacht, even smaller. Like Martial Arabs today have huts they make out of and it floats, and that thing would not have survived. You know, there
But
would be
even
no
if-
remains of that thing left.
Even if Otangelo is correct, the Earth could still be billions of years old.
Exactly. So how does this relate then to the age?
Well, I consider the biblical narrative as authoritative because I believe that the Bible is true, that Genesis is true, and if you read
No, but I'm
Genesis
just saying
today,
I don't care. I'm the atheist here. I don't care.
Or a
about it.
Muslim, right? Muslims believe that
You want-
in Turkey that is the actual boat that they found, and that a world war
Well-
had happened or whatever, and the
Well,
Bible
Rob,
is.
you want to know what my reasons are why I hold to a young Earth position. If you care or not about the evidence that I provide, that is your problem. I
So
am just telling
okay,
you
so far-
what I believe.
But
Okay,
so
and
far
why
you've
I
given-
believe.
But so
Okay.
far you've given the problem of Luca, and I'm saying scientists are working on that with respect to the moon. Then you bring up dinosaur blood. That's been thoroughly refuted by, how ironic, the very person that comes up with the evidence. And then you bring up Noah's Ark being found on Ararat, which is just nonsensical because
It's actually Utanapishtim's arc. So, let's just get
yeah,
that
like
straight.
Josh and I have even debated this topic because Josh knows I've thoroughly investigated this topic and I'm still investigating it. Like, there is no physical evidence for the Ark, and again, how does that relate to?
Well, have
You'll
you
have to
seen-
literally
have
give the
you seen
timing
the-
of the flood.
Well, then how is it that Philip Williams actually visited the structure and he made videos on it, and you can look it up on Facebook, on YouTube?
What's that, Frank Creek?
That is not evidence for Noah's
This
Ark.
tree is older than 4,500 years old, Otangelo.
That's what you
But
claim.
we have cuneiform documents that are older than that.
And we have ice core samples that go up 800,000 years. So how you mean Noah's flood would have totally
Well, where
destroyed
would
that?
how would the water? How like this isn't me? I'm not even trying to like disprove. How do you actually think the water worked? Like, doesn't the water need to rise up? Right? Like, where
that's-
did it?
okay,
come
here's-
from? Like,
Here's an ironic thing about that. So if you actually take, and I actually spoke with a geophysicist about this. If you take literally the years or the days of how much the flood transpires of 150 days,
Mm.
and then you take the size of the Earth,
yeah,
and it's global. Pretend it's
yeah.
a global
Add a
flood.
bit to its radius and get the
You can actually then
or sphere,
calculate
yeah.
then the rate of growth. The water levels go up. It's so slow that it would not change the landscape one bit.
Yeah, but I mean, where does the water come from to do this? Like,
No,
is there
just
enough water on Earth?
pretend.
Like,
Don't worry about all that. Just
Okay.
go along with the fact that it's a global flood, right? So say everything's covered. Obviously, there'll be some form of compression, but then the water goes away. The Earth would still look the same. There's no change. I would say we had the continents the way we have it right now. I don't know, 5,000 meters height of water, which is say Mount Ararat to cover Mount Ararat, and then the water goes down. But the rate at which it grows up and comes down is so slow it doesn't even move sand particles.
Where could it go down to? Like, that's not how water works.
Don't worry
Like,
about. All I'm saying is
This is just such a
Miracles,
funny
Nathan,
discussion.
miracles.
the youngest model says that there's tectonic shifting and uplifting because of Noah's flood.
Yeah, but
Well, if you take the rate at
Oh, I
which
see.
the waters
Yeah,
go
okay.
up and down,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't do anything. Yeah.
like,
You know, Otangelo, how you say that atheists don't become Christians because there's some personal experience that they had or whatever. There's something holding them back that's more emotional or psychological. What is it about the age of the earth, do you think, that might be, like, is there a component of this? What in your theology would have to change if Rob's view is correct?
Well, I think that Rob is incorrect for scientific reasons.
But if he were correct, let's say God himself came down and convinced you that he is God and he says, oh, by the way, Otangelo, Rob doesn't get everything right, but he's more accurate than you are. The earth is billions of years old. What would you say you got wrong? Like what would be the consequence of that for you personally? What would you have to change theologically, emotionally, psychologically?
Well, I would say that then I would have to take Genesis as a figurative or ancient Near East account and not in a literal sense.
But just quickly, now coming back to my Christian fold, I take the Genesis thing literally as well. But I'm a theistic evolutionist.
Yeah, I would say the majority of evangelical biblical scholars would say that they believe the Hebrew Bible is the inspired word of God and that it's true. But none of them hold, I mean, none, very, very few hold the position that you hold.
But is there a specific theology, Otangelo, that you think you would have to reject, or a new theology you would have to accept if Rob's view of the age of the earth is correct?
Well, I think that Genesis is very clear in regards of the 6 days, that they were literal 24-hour days during which God created.
That's not my question. My question is, what would have to change of a theology you currently cherish that you would have to change? Can I guess, and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong?
Go ahead.
My guess is that if you become an old age creationist like Rob, that you would start to doubt other things in the Bible is really true. Am I right?
Well, as I said previously, I was an older creationist. Rob is a theistic evolutionist, which is different from an older creationist. So we have several views here, and none of them are a problem to believe in the Bible and in Christ and in Christianity.
Okay. So I'm hearing you say that it is actually all about the evidence. There's nothing theological that might cause you to pause and say, no, the original sin's now screwed up if I take Rob's position, or Jesus might have got things wrong when he refers to Adam and Eve, and I don't want to go there. There's nothing like that going on, right? Or is there?
Well, there are those which believe that Genesis is just written in a figurative language. It is not a real narrative of real events which actually happened. And if you take that stance, then you say, okay, it was just a figurative explanation. It wasn't meant to be a historical narrative of real events. So I would have to take that stance. And
I just don't get this. I just don't understand this. And I know Josh is like, yep.
No, I get it, Rob. I get it where Otangelo is coming from, because what he's really saying what he's really saying here, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that if Genesis 1 is figurative, maybe the New Testament and Jesus' resurrection is also figurative. And now the whole foundation of what Otangelo believes is now on shaky sand.
Okay, if I was to put Josh's cap on, and Josh knows I do, because I honor the ancient Near Eastern context first before any concordist application. The concordist application, the reason why I do that is because guess what? The New Testament authors did that to the Old Testament about Jesus. So I'm throwing it out there as an thought experiment. What if we concord Genesis with science? But first and foremost, if Genesis has its own intelligent, context, genre context, then that has nothing to do with what happens afterwards, whether you're talking about all the books that come after or the events that come after. It's just, that's what it's designed to do, which is that ancient Near Eastern stuff. So then how can, if in that sense, if it's ancient Near Eastern polemical allegory, why should then that mean that Jesus's narrative should also
because it's contained in a canonized book that many Christians view as the inspired word of God. And so now, even if I get what you're saying, that we have different genres, but for, I think, a Christian like Otangelo, and again, Otangelo, tell me if I'm misrepresenting you.
But then he's the one doing something wrong with the text. Then at the end of the day, he's not honoring what it should be, which is what experts like Josh will say.
If I could, just for a second, to maybe give an example that would be very, very clear. You know, when David says, "Day and night, my tears have been my food." What is that true?
That's literal.
Otangelo, is that true? Day and night, my tears have been
sorry,
my food.
Sorry, I was distracted. Can you ask?
No,
again?
it's okay. So, you know, when David says, "Day and night, my tears have been my food," is that true?
No, I think you need to really, in many cases, make an interpretation. Was that
If you had to, sorry, if you
figurative?
just because I'm going somewhere with it, if you had to say yes or no, would that be fair to pick yes or no to that, to the question, is that true?
Well, I would say it's not fair. You have to
Right.
make
You
an
wouldn't. Why?
interpretation. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
why?
you have to make an interpretation of the meaning of what was said.
Right. And very specifically, you would say this is a poem, right? This is poetic language, right?
Right,
So he's
exactly.
using language that is not
Yeah.
literal in the sense that we are talking about literal, right?
Yes,
So he's not he's not going right. Nobody thinks that, right? Because we have poetry today, right? Sorry,
Right.
that was very graphic, but because we understand that today, when we see David saying, "Day and night, my tears have been my food," we say, "Well, is it true?" That's a weird question to ask. We would say, "Was David really sad about something so sad that he didn't eat?" Maybe, yeah, that's true, right? Then we can answer that question. But I think the problem is when you look at passages like Genesis 1 and you have this sort of cosmological genre, that because we don't have that today, our 21st
He's not
century,
listening to you right now.
that's okay, but like just for everybody, like our 21st century mindset is not to understand that genre. We look at that like we would look at, you know, some account in Second Kings.
But Josh,
And
there's
so
a bigger issue here, though, and Tangelo, I need you to nod your head if you think I'm saying representing you. But the bigger issue here is that if we went in a time machine and found Jesus in the first century and asked him about the book of Genesis, Jesus would have probably said, if pressed, is the earth closer to billions, thousands of years old, millions? Jesus probably would have said thousands. I think Otangelo believes that, and I think Jesus would have also said that Adam and Eve were created and there was nothing prior to them. Like they didn't come from an ancestor. They were the first man, first women. I think Otangelo believes that Jesus would have said, this is how it happened. Now,
Okay, so Doug, just quickly.
But hang on, let me finish.
Yeah.
If that is not true, then all of Otangelo's theology and view of Christianity is dead. Because in his mind, Jesus is God. And if he was wrong, then what? He's God and he's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Ray.
I'll just throw this in there as an example.
Guys, I have to leave. Sorry, guys, because
And I'm
But I was right, Otangelo?
well.
Yes, I agree with you. You're right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Otangelo, by the way. Appreciate it.
Yes,
And
thank
thanks for
you. It was fun, and see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you for being a naturalist for like half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good one.
That was fun. Bye.
Bye. There's a few people who want to say various things. So if we go round and everyone can just like have a minute or so to say like closing statements and promote themselves, whatever they want to do. So if we go round, do you want to go first? And hi there, Tom Rabbit. I know you're recording, Tom Rabbit. Do you want to...
No, you do.
Yeah, I would just say that subscribe to my channel, obviously, but I think it's probably important to say to the listeners that, I mean, I came into one of these streams for the first time kind of like the other day, speaking to Otangelo, right? There's a lot of nonsense that goes on in these streams. Well, it's just and I can kind of sympathize very strongly with Pine Creek when he wants to just get to, you know, why take the most complicated route when you can start at something much simpler? And also you got to understand, people are watching this. It's also going to make it much more accessible to anyone who's watching, right? Next time that Pine Creek isn't here, or I'm not here, or someone else isn't here, and they're there, they're going to be able to use those tools to discuss things with these theists, right? And I think it's really, really important to stress, because when everyone has specialized knowledge. Someone might be specialized in biology, right? Or specialize in, as Dr. Josh does in Hebrew or whatever people. And I understand that people really want to use and flex this knowledge. That's great, right? But I think people need to remember who their interlocutor is, right? Because when we're talking to Otangelo about things that before he even opens his mouth, I know that he's not going to understand. Really, what are we doing here, right? What's the purpose of that, right? So I think also a lot of people that you're going to have viewers who are listening, and they're going to get the impression is like, oh, I can't engage in these conversations because I don't have X specialized knowledge. I don't have Y specialized knowledge. I don't know Hebrew. I don't know about nucleotides, right? And guess what? 90 to 95% of these conversations, you don't need any of that. You don't need any kind of specialized knowledge. What you need to do is pay attention, use your critical thinking, and guess what? You can refute most of these things. I walked in this conversation with Otangelo, right? He started talking about probability, about amino acids. I don't know anything about amino acids, but I was able to walk in and almost instantly point out a contradiction in what he was saying. So to the viewers, to the people that have ambitions as to engage in discussions such as this, don't be afraid that you don't have certain types of specialized knowledge. You have all the tools that you need to engage in these discussions right now. Just try and develop and focus on what you do know, right? And use your brain, use your critical thinking, and you can do what everyone else in here can do. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think of all the conversations Otangelo has had with non-Christians, he's going to remember this one. It's going to stick out in his brain because it went well. We got in the weeds a little bit, in the muck and mire a little bit, but for the most part, we showed that we can understand his position, and he showed that he can understand ours, at least partially, going in both directions. And I think that's what most people just want. I think most people are okay with other people disagreeing with them, but they really just want to be heard. They want to be understood. They don't want to be misrepresented. And so I think he smiled. He had fun. And Tom Rabbit, I just have one question for you. Which is your favorite Darth Dawkins video that you've put up on your channel?
Ooh, well, there's, as far as a one-on-one,
yeah,
yes, the Pine Creek is one of my favorites.
Yes,
it's definitely one of my favorites. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oscar, then, do you want to
go check it out if you haven't? It's really good.
And so, all the pressure now, Dr. Josh. You've got to. You're going to be the last one.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I didn't pay Tom to make that speech, but it was perfect. I was actually hoping I'd go right after him because I wanted to say you don't need it, but if you want it, I have a new book coming out, which would have been perfect. But no, so thanks, Nathan, for interrupting the flow there. No, but yeah, I guess Megan would be happy if I showed the book. So the proof should be at our house this weekend coming up, but it's the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament, and it's specifically designed to do just what Tom was saying for the Old Testament. So if you are interested in digging into that sort of thing, the book is for you as the atheist or the skeptic who wants to argue with online apologists that are not like Rob.